Max, I want to highlight your career because you are a former USL champion. Even though it can be hard to become a professional athlete, I think it's important to highlight that there's different levels of professional athletes and then also what the process is like because it's different for everybody. But if we could first start with you growing up and how you got into it.
I grew up in Evansville, Indiana, um, and I started playing soccer at a really young age. Probably like most kids, I started at like a rec league where everyone's allowed to play. It's just for fun, uh, and just enjoyed playing. There wasn't anything too serious, but it was just fun. And I remember um, continuing to play in that league for a couple years until I was probably like 8 or 9, and um, one of my dad's friends had a son who was a couple years older, and they were starting a club team. And again, that's still pretty young for club soccer, but it was a little more competitive. And so my dad asked me if I wanted to play on that team, and so I joined it. And I was playing with kids a couple years older than me, but again, you're still pretty young, so it's not that big of a deal. But I really enjoyed that. I think playing with older kids at that age really kind of like challenged me, and I enjoyed that part of it. And I played with that team. We were just called FC Evansville, and I played on that team for almost all the way until I got to high school. Um, and that's when we kind of started traveling to different tournaments in local cities around here. Nothing too far, but we would go to tournaments in Indianapolis or St. Louis or Nashville or Louisville. So 2 3 hour trips, and I remember those always being super fun, but a really good experience and challenging, and getting to play kids from other cities and different states. And then I got to high school, and I played on the varsity soccer team my freshman year, and that was also another new experience and something challenging but really fun, because I was playing with kids 3 or 4 years older and kids I had looked up to when I was in grade school. So that was something that I'll always remember, and something that played a big part in probably my development as a soccer player. And while playing high school soccer, I also played club soccer in the off season, and that was at another high level as well. And that's when I could kind of sense that like soccer for me was taking a more serious turn, and I was it wasn't um, just for fun strictly at that point, but maybe I could play collegiate soccer if I had a good high school career and we did well in the right tournaments around the
Was that
country.
a, was that a goal to maybe, or was it just something that was floating around in your mind?
I think after my freshman or sophomore year of high school, I think I kind of realized that I had the potential, and that's the time when college soccer coaches start to recruit players in high school. And that can happen really at all different ages. I think there's actually a specific year in high school that you have to reach before you can be recruited. But I think mine was around the end of my sophomore year. And once I knew that was possible, it did become sort of a goal for me. Um, it wasn't maybe an end all be all, but I think I knew if I worked really hard, I had a really good chance at it. And I didn't know exactly what level of college soccer that would be, because there's several different tiers of college soccer. But I do
What
think
years are there, real quick, so people know?
yeah, so there's Division 1 soccer, which is considered the highest level, but that by no means mean it is the highest level. And then there's Division 2, Division 3, and then I think there's NAIA. But yeah, there's definitely several different tiers. And there's also club soccer in college as well, where kids can go to be student athletes and just play soccer for fun. It's something that maybe they've played their whole lives, and it's an experience that they want to continue, but they don't want to dedicate all their time and efforts um, to practice and stuff. It's just more for games and hanging out with your friends, and enjoying a sport that you grew up loving.
So with that said, you notice there could be
Yeah.
an opportunity for you in college. And did you aim for a certain division, certain level?
Yeah, I think,
And then
well,
that process of what it was
yeah,
like at schools, if you looked around, where you ended up going. Tell me about that program.
Yeah, I think initially, when you're younger, you may get recruited by the schools that think they have the best chance of recruiting you. So they may be lower division schools, they may be higher division schools. It all depends on where they see you fitting into their program. Initially, I remember the very first school that I got recruited by was a Division I school. It was the University of Evansville here in my hometown, and that's where my dad played. Remember being really excited about that though, because it was the first team that really showed expressed interest in me, and I thought like, oh, this is a real opportunity. But I was still early in my high school career, and I thought that if I kept playing well, I would still have other schools come to hopefully recruit me. Um, and that's kind of exactly what happened. We continued to play in club tournaments around the country, and I gained exposure to other schools and colleges, and received recruiting letters from all different types of schools, whether it be Division II, Division I, even a couple Division III schools. But I think once I had a couple Division I offers, it really became a goal of mine, and to play Division I soccer. I thought that I had the ability, and that's half the battle, is thinking, believing in yourself, and then the other part is having, genuine interest from those colleges. And so by the time I was probably a junior, I had some real offers on the table from colleges, um, a little bit all over the country. Um, Being from Indiana and being from a smaller city, uh, I had a little bit of a desire to get out and to experience something else, but I also didn't want to go too far from home, because I truly valued being around my family, and I wanted them to be able to see me play on a regular basis. They've been a big part of my journey playing soccer. So I remember it coming down to 3 or 4 different schools, and I visited several different colleges, which is one thing that I would highly recommend to younger players who may be going through this recruiting experience, is to go and see as many different colleges as you can, whether that be through an invitation from the coaches, or if you can do that on your own, because it really helps you figure out what it is you may like about a university. You can set up meetings with professors, with teachers, with students, to let you know what their current experience is like, and maybe you can relate, or you want to have that experience. That was kind of the initial start of my recruiting process.
And then once you committed to Notre Dame, you're a big fan now.
Go Irish.
What was that like? What was it like? Did you think the whole time you were just going to go to school and play soccer, or did most of the guys in the program have goals to continue on? What were you thinking during that college experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think initially the reason I kind of fell in love with the University of Notre Dame was when I went on my visit, and I just felt, um, one, I felt that they were passionate about having me attend their university. It felt like a very family oriented university. And then something that was instilled in me at a young age, and was just getting a good education. I think that was something that was very important from the onset of my recruiting process. And Notre Dame has had a history of producing high level student athletes. So people who seek a higher education, but also want to perform at a high level. And I think it just was a perfect mix of those two things for me.
And I should mention that you won a championship there too.
Yeah, we won the national championship. That was one of the best experiences in my soccer career that I have had, one of the highest moments. Um, and the first championship for the University of Notre Dame, which made it a little more special as well.
Yeah, that's exciting. It's
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, we took the burden off of everyone else's shoulders. Now they can
oh,
just
nice.
a little more free. Yeah.
So once you were finishing up school and everything else, and you were probably getting ready to graduate, what was the next condensed version of what you did next? You knew you wanted to try to play professionally. What were your next steps and your journey that way?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I didn't I didn't know initially, and even going into college, I wouldn't say that it was a specific goal of mine to play professionally. I think I've always kind of taken things as they've come. And I think after having 3 to 4 years of a good career in college and realizing that there's potential to play professionally, then kind of became a goal. And so I actually returned for a fifth year, just the fall semester of school, because I redshirted my freshman year of college. And going into my fifth year, I kind of knew like, all right, I have one semester to play as best as I can, finish up some school, and then hopefully put myself in the best position to play professionally. And fortunately for me, I was invited to the MLS Combine, where they invite some of the top players from around the country to come and practice and perform in front of the professional coaches from the MLS, and they can kind of scout you out and see if you'd be a good fit for their team and organization. And to be honest, I didn't really know where in that process I would fall, whether I would be an earlier pick in the draft or a later pick, or whether I would get drafted at all. And I'll touch on it later, but it's not necessary to get drafted to play professionally. You don't have to go through the specific avenue of the MLS draft. There are several other ways to reach the level of professional soccer, which is good. I think that's a great thing, because people come from different backgrounds in it. They shouldn't have to subscribe to one way. But for me, it was going to the MLS draft, and I remember getting picked 25th overall to Real Salt Lake, and being really excited. One, that I got drafted, that I was going to have the chance to play professional soccer, because it is a unique opportunity. And then my next thought was, where is Utah? Where is Salt Lake City? I need to do some research, because I hadn't really spent that much time out west up until that point in my life. So, but the overall feeling was a great sense of pride that I had, hopefully achieved the ability to play in the professional soccer, but two, excitement. So.
And then that's how we met. And you were drafted by Real Salt Lake, and then spent time there, and then you also went into the USL, which is also a professional league. And tell me about your experience just in general. You were in that league for quite a while. You won a championship in it. Tell me kind of your experience, the quality of play, and then also, kind of the day in and day out of what it was like to be a professional athlete.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, I got drafted to Real Salt Lake, and they're the MLS franchise. So they play in the highest level of American soccer. But as you touched on, there are different levels of professional soccer, just as there are in college. For me, I was drafted by Real Salt Lake, but I ended up signing a contract with their USL affiliate, which is the United Soccer League, which is considered to be a tier below Major League Soccer. At that time, there are teams in the United Soccer League that stand alone in that league. They're their own franchise. However, in my case, I was still affiliated with the Real Salt Lake organization. We played below them, and it was considered to be a team that was to help develop younger players to move up to the Real Salt Lake full team to play in MLS games and help develop those players. So I remember not quite fully understanding what the USL was initially, and not really understanding how much quality there was in that league. But I did know that it was still a full professional league. Players still received compensation for their play, and they also would receive other benefits based on the team they played for and the situation that they found themselves in. So for me, I received a base salary, and then I also had my living paid for. Now, because it's the league below, there wasn't as much base pay. Like the base pay wasn't as high. So that's why they compensated players with free housing and apartments. And typically they would house us together, depending on your age, whether you had a spouse or a girlfriend or anything like that. And so I spent 2 years in Salt Lake City, as you touched on. And We won a league championship, which was also another career highlight of mine, and I really enjoyed playing with all the guys on that team, and very thankful to the organization for putting us in a position to be successful. And at the end of my second year in Salt Lake City, which was 2017, my contract was up, and I had the option to go sign with another team, whether it be in the MLS or the USL. And then currently there are other leagues. The USL Championship is the highest league, and now there's the USL League One, League Two, and then there's also an MLS Next League, which is a closer affiliate with MLS teams, as you would imagine. And I chose to go sign for the Tampa Bay Rowdies in St. Petersburg, Florida. And from there, I spent 3 years with that organization and won 2 Eastern Conference championships.
If you could quickly give a little synopsis, like a little recap of what it's like day in and day out. Um, you know, I think a lot of people think they have it easy. They get up, they go to work, they come home, they relax. But
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be mentally strong, you have to be physically strong. Like you have to make sure everything's kind of in check. It's also somewhat limiting. I think sports, you can't always engage in other things or um, sometimes it's in your contract where you can't go skiing or things like that. So what is it like day in and day out, just so someone would get a glimpse of what your life was like?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Each team is different, but the majority of the teams that I've had experience with and teammates that I've known who've gone on to play with other teams, I would say a typical week looks like training Monday through Friday, and typically games are on Saturday or Sunday. And as the summer comes along, they usually add a midweek game, perhaps on a Wednesday. But for the sake of the beginning of the season and typical week, it looks like training in the mornings. So usually you get up, try to have a good breakfast, something that makes you feel ready to play. And 8 a.m. was typically start time for practice for the teams that I was on, or at least you had to report by 8 a.m. So that means you're at the locker room or you're at the facility, and you're there to get your body right, whether that's warming up. Some people get in the hot tub, some people roll out, some people get on a bike to loosen up, get your ankles taped, whatever kind of treatment you may need from the athletic trainer to the massage therapist, whatever it is, to get yourself feeling right so you can perform at the highest level come training time. So you're there for maybe an hour before training starts, and then training starts at 9. From there, you have practice for an hour, hour and a half. And again, I know growing up, I thought like an hour-long training, that's not very long. But when you're doing it professionally, one, you have to make sure that guys stay healthy and that they're not pushing themselves too hard to where you're risking injury. But also, you want them to feel fresh come the weekend whenever they're having to perform at the highest level, because ultimately you're judged on wins and losses. But training ends, you go back to the locker room or training facility, and you're doing everything you can to prepare your body for training the following day. So that would be an ice bath, a cold tub, maybe a massage, some sort of treatment if you've got any nagging injuries from training, a recovery shake, something to refuel your body. And then you're probably out and you're having lunch as quickly as you can. And then for a lot of guys, you're back home by 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So that may not seem like a long day. And it's not in terms of hours, but you're putting in a lot of energy and effort. And your job then is to take care of yourself for the following day. So you may sit at home, you may come up with different hobbies and stuff, but your ultimate job is to prepare yourself for the next day. So I remember a lot of times I would just sit at home, watch TV, read until dinner time, and then I would make a meal and try to get to bed as early as possible. And that's a typical day for the most part from Monday through Friday. And then Saturday rolls around, you wake up, and again, you're trying to eat right and prepare yourself, stay hydrated, and then perform at your highest level for the game that evening. I think you touched on it, but sacrifices are a big part of being a professional athlete. Your schedule is not a typical 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. There are midweek games, and a lot of times you're traveling. So not every game you play is at home. You may leave on a Friday and fly to another city across the country, spend the night in a hotel, play Saturday, fly home Sunday. And typically you'll have an off day following a trip like that. But again, it's not to go out and um, do anything crazy. It's to kind of let your body calm down, your mind recover, and get yourself in the best place mentally and physically to perform in training.
And then, so after, I mean, you played for a handful of years and for a couple different teams. And I like that you brought up that you went when you were thinking in high school and you were thinking about the process that you wanted to go to a school where you also got a good education, and that was important. And I think from working in sports that that's not talked about enough, and how athletes, I mean, are, as I'm getting older, even like our bodies do start to change and we don't have as much energy or things like that. And how important it is to realize that this career has a time limit in a way, and that we need to be prepared for the next step. So I know that you got your degree, which is also a rare thing for professional athletes in all fields to actually finish their degrees. And then, so real quick, tell me about that and how it's benefited you post professional soccer.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is that one? A lot of either athletes don't have the opportunity to finish their degree while they're in school, or it's something that they don't maybe value as much as they realize they hope they would have when their career is done. Um, yeah, I finished with a marketing degree as well as a film, theater, and television degree. And now, having come to the end of my career, um, I can say for certain that when I'm looking for jobs and have been looking for jobs, uh, a big check mark on your resume is, have you finished or completed your degree from whatever school that may be. And that's not to say that that's the only way that you'll get a job or that you
Right.
can move on after a career of professional soccer, but it definitely is a big help. And it also is an opportunity to kind of um, see out something and to challenge yourself to finish a degree, but also it gives you an idea of what you may want to pursue when you're done. It kind of is a lead off in that direction. Now, one thing that's great, and I think is becoming at least more common in the United States, is that teams are offering the ability to finish your degree while you're in school or while you're still playing professionally. So you can maybe attend an online university to finish your degree so that when you're done playing, you're still set up for success in some regard and you can network and pursue a career after soccer.
Which is
I also think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I also think it's important that, as I mentioned, your day a lot of times is done at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. There are several hours in the day that you can use to um, better yourself, whether that be finishing an education online or reaching out to local organizations, companies that maybe you're interested in, just saying, hey, can I come in one day a week? Can I see what kind of stuff you guys do here? Because I'm gearing towards a life after soccer and I want to put myself in the best position. And that's something that I did this past year, was reaching out to either former student athletes or former um, students that were in my class growing up, and then also people who I had networked with and known from college or beyond, and reached out and said, hey, what do I need to do to put myself in a position to maybe get hired here, or to have a successful interview, or could you put me in touch with somebody at this company that I'm interested in? So there's a lot of ways that you can still take advantage and set yourself up for life after soccer while you're still playing professionally.
Definitely. And I think that in all sports, and it's nice to know that places are and teams and organizations are want you to continue to finish your do your career, but also finish an education or develop a skill, because everyone does know it's doesn't matter how good you are, there's a
Yeah.
time frame. Also, real quick, what would your this is my last question. What would your advice be for someone who is interested in becoming a professional soccer player? That was my dream when I was younger.
Yeah.
So what 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 would you say to them, or what would you say to your younger self, or what's something that you wish you would have known that you didn't
Uh,
know?
I guess what I would have said to my younger self was that, uh, you kind of have to be your biggest believer. Um, I was very fortunate that I had a lot of people who did believe in me and push me, but um, when you get to the professional level, there's not so many people looking out for you. You really have to believe in yourself because they're going to be tough days, um, and you have to be committed. You got to be resilient, and continue to work hard, and that's a given in any profession. But um, I would say, truly, it sounds cliche, but to believe in yourself, and that um, make good habits. That's always something that benefits you at every turn. Is if you've got the ability to fall back on good habits, you'll typically put yourself in the best position to succeed. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I like that. I think, just to share my last thought, I think, yeah, you have to be a believer in yourself with anything you do, but also I think it's huge in sports as well that you have to be mentally strong, and there's tough days like you said, and there's days where you're really critical of yourself, or the wear and tear of everything, or you have a lot of time, you have downtime to think and process and overanalyze, and how important it is to make sure your mindset is right and that's taken care of as well, instead of just it being a physical
yeah.
thing.
And I guess I would leave it with just be very passionate about it. It's a very rewarding sport, but it's also a very tough one. If your heart's not truly in it, then um, you'll be spending a lot of time doing something that you're maybe not so satisfied with. So I would say just if you love it, continue to pursue it. It can be very rewarding.
Well, thanks, Max. Well
Yeah,
said.
thanks for having me.